Welcome, everybody, you beautiful bouncing babies, to VU Podcast, episode 3. Not one, but two, but three. This is it. A trio of them. This is unbelievable. Never has a podcast gotten to so many episodes. Everyone has cancelled well before number 3 because they realize that no one cares about them and their goddamn friends' opinion on politics and religion and all those other things. But we soldiered through. That's why we're the best podcast on the planet.
We the best podcast.
Just put it out there. I
want to go full out of the gate. I need that confident boost. I think we all need that confidence boost during COVID. We're all down the dumps, but I'm bringing us up. I'm bringing us all up together.
Best.
Let's start with counting our blessings. We haven't been cancelled yet. The calls for us getting cancelled are piling high. There may or may not be a non-zero value attributable to the number of calls for us to be cancelled. And we are still not cancelled. So how good. 2020 can do nothing to us. Untouchable.
All right.
Good.
On the top, I would firstly like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of this land we are recording on. I'd also like to pay respects to the elders, both past, present, and emerging. All right. My name is Rhath. I'm hosting in place of our beloved MC Dilly Dave, who is normally here and hosting this ship as tight as he can bring it. And tonight we have got MQ, and down the bottom we got Jason. And first off, I want to ask Jason, how the bloody hell are you?
I'm good today. Yeah, good. Just chilling, vibing, all that stuff.
Vibing. That's
Vibing.
Yeah.
Sneaking that in there early.
You've stolen my hoodie, which I'm furious about. I had those custom made by Tajay and Bendigo and Bendighetto.
I don't even know where I got this from. I think it was Tajay. I don't know.
It was definitely imported from the faraway land of Bendigo. I'll murder a small child if I'm wrong.
Doesn't sound. Normally, when you make bets, you stand to lose something. Would you do it in a way that you would easily end up in prison, or is it just like
saying that murdering a small child for me is a gain? Like I'm already pumped.
No, but if it's it depends on whose child it
that's
is
exactly right.
To you.
To me, it's some anonymous child. As you're just like going out on the prowl.
Like you just walk into a park and you're just like, all right, that one.
Wish I hadn't been so wrong.
I'll tell you which child right now. It's the child as you're walking down the street that doesn't get out of your goddamn way. I respect parents so much when you're walking down the street and you're just minding your business. You've been to the shops. You picked up some goddamn Instant Mac and a 42 case of soy milk, and you're trying to get back home.
We've all been there, yeah.
We've all been there. It's such a relatable scenario. And there's a couple of kids on scooters, which I don't understand. Get some more wheels because we all deserve it. And they won't get out of the way. And the parents don't yank them out of the way. When I was a boy, I would almost have my arm ripped out of the socket if I was in the way of somebody else. And that's how it should be.
These kids don't have respect anymore.
Respect. No respect.
No respect. It's
parents who don't yank. I feel like,
Oh, the choice of words.
I'm so glad nothing came after the word yank. That was.
That's it. We're just yank arms out of sockets. That's all I'm talking about.
That's all we're doing. All you're talking about is yanking the arms out of sockets of small children. That's a nice light-hearted topic.
Oh yeah, super light-hearted.
To start off,
you started on child murder, where now it's just like some abuse.
It can't get much worse, and we can get it lighter after this. Like we want to go in hard, and then
you know what I love about this is that this topic will not be flagged by YouTube's algorithms. But if we dare cuss, if we dare say an F word or an S word, who knows? Maybe even a C word because we're from down under and that shit flows like water.
Blimey.
Then we'd get flagged instantly. But child mutilation, not a problem. MQ, M to the
Talk
Q.
to me.
How are you? That's my question for you.
That's a great question. I'm doing well. I've had I had a really solid run of like 3-4 super productive days at the end of last week. And then yesterday, like woke up, got to my desk, I was like, nah, because I'd just been listening to the first episode of our podcast and Amitha's voice about like, if you're not feeling it, if you're not feeling that inspiration, that's your body telling you that you're like not in that zone. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, Queen, thank you. And I just like took it chill, woke up today and was like, cool, what were the things I was rushing or dying or like stressing myself out to get done today? And I was like, oh, okay, I just need to like make a quick clip and post it on Instagram. Did that. Sweet. What else? Let me do some extra credit. Let me just like write a verse and then sort of move on. And that was it. And it was great. So I'm in a good space. I'm in a good zone mentally. I've just been eating a lot of trail mix, so I'm a little bit like gassy, but I feel athletic. That's the thing about trail mix. Ever since someone told me that that's what it's called, like I was just like, oh, it's mixed nuts or whatever. Yeah. Trail mix. I was like, sweet. That makes so much sense. I'm on the trail. It could be the Oregon Trail. I'm like trekking to find new lands. I'm a pioneer, and that's why I need these cashews and cranberries and raisins and mulberries. Man, this mix has mulberries in it. I don't know if you guys have had mulberries. You need, Jason thinks I'm the bougiest person ever. I'm happy to wear that.
Luxury, mulberries.
Mulberries. I can't not laugh at mulberries because my dad he'd always forget that he told us his story. He'd be like, when I was a kid, I'd go down to a small country town in Tassie, it's like Absalon or something like that. He goes, I'd sit in a tree and eat mulberries all day and get all over me. I'm like, cool, Dad. And then mention mulberries again. I was like, okay, yep, cool. Yep. You're in a tree. I get it. You had a better childhood than I did. You're in a tree.
It sounds like a delightful like childhood memory. That's maybe his like little safe haven that he likes to go to in his mind.
100%.
In a tree with mulberries.
I was about to say, I think as the older we get, and obviously I look like I'm a small baby, but inside, deep down, I'm a 102-year-old man. And I understand, like you have those reminiscing thoughts, but they come back more like glitches. They're like, oh, I remember when it was good. I remember when it was good. I remember when it wasn't so bad. I remember when I didn't have to pay taxes. I remember when I didn't have to go to work every goddamn day. I remember mulberries. I'm fine. I'm fine. You remember? I remember.
You remember? I remember. Do you guys remember
why do you think we drink so much? No, it's because it tastes good. Sponsored by beer. This episode.
Just beer. Enjoy beer.
Oh dear.
Beer. Is there a brand of just called beer? I'm sure someone's missing out on it.
There is a can of beer called beer by, I think it might be Moondog. I've got someone doing research just on the side here. I'm going to ask him real quick. Who makes the beer cans? They're just called beer.
Oh, researcher, jeez.
Yeah.
We got
up in this. I'm my assistant. Shaking her head. It's not quick enough. That's called dead air. There's definitely a can of beer called beer. It was Moondog. I'm correct.
It was Moondog.
Moondog's the one.
Moondog.
Wicked. But that's I like that idea for a beer. It's called Dead Air, the beer.
Oh.
Right?
The best beer, the best name of beer I've ever heard is a Tassie brand, Last Rights beer. That's the brand name. And it's called Big Smelly Doona. And I'm like, what a name for a beer. It is so good though.
There are no
Love that.
You crack it open and there are no surprises. You're like,
Yep.
Yep.
Smelt that.
Smells like body odor, skin flakes, and bed bugs.
Especially during COVID, you walk into your own room after spending like an hour outside, and you come back like, oh no. Is that me? Is that 6 months of me? I think that's the smell of 6 months of me in one combined
someone else must have been lying in my bed. No, it's Goldilocks. This is a Goldilocks situation going on here. It wasn't me. I smell like petunias all year round.
Petunias?
I heard something about
doubt that very much.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I just had petunias in my head. So.
If you had to pick a flower that sounded funny, petunia is the way to go. Petunia is the one in terms of comedic value, purely based on the word itself. That's a beautiful word.
Yeah. I'll work it into a poem somehow.
That's your deal. You're a poet. You're a poet, and you bloody well. No, I'm not going to finish it because it's too cheesy. Jason, Jason. On that note, what are you working on? What's in the works for you?
I think I probably have to start a couple more. Like I've just finished a couple last week.
Humble brag.
So just
knocking them out.
No, well, the thing is, I don't have to put a chorus. I don't have to put it to a beat. I don't have to find I don't have to do all that. I just write it and then go, that's terrible. I need to rewrite half of it.
Don't worry. We do that as well.
Yeah.
I'm second guessing everything I've ever written.
That's a poetry masterclass right there. How to be a poet. Write something and say it's terrible.
Yeah.
You've got yourself a poem.
That said, though, that's I think that's a really important lesson that a lot of people need to learn when they're trying to write lyrics or write poetry. And we had a chat about this on a previous Vibe Union meeting that wasn't recorded. So very gassy, full of beer. That we were talking about the writing process, and part of it is, I think, especially because it's so ego driven, like all of us want that big old gold sticker stamped on our forehead saying, you did it, you wrote a thing, and it's actually not terrible. Like you've done it. You're you're an artist. But realistically, like usually the first, you have an idea, and maybe it's a great concept. Maybe it's a fantastic concept that can reach a lot of people that is really relatable. But the first draft, it's not it, Chief. The first draft is usually not it, and you can. This applies to every single medium, but for some reason, I feel like music is romanticized, and I think this is going to tie into our discussion further down the line. But nonetheless, I think music is particularly romanticized. Same with poetry, and also maybe like drawing and stuff like that. Things that are really tangible, really organic forms of art compared to, say, something like cutting a film or making a TV show, where art and something like that is supposed to be from the soul. And so in that case, that first draft, that is supposed to be it. It's not it.
Yeah.
You got to rewrite.
That's it. Yeah. There's this sense of unfiltered, the unfiltered expression is like the ultimate, right? That's like, that just happened there and then in the moment. And that might be true, but a lot of random stuff is happening in the moment. And it's only once you get that out, throw it against the wall, and then you're like, okay, cool. 70% of this is total utter crap. Yeah. Another 20% is, all right, but maybe for a different piece. And then 10%. I don't know. For me, the ratio is actually the other way around. It's very much like, sweet. I really dig most of this. This word needs a change, or this needs that. It's funny actually doing the skits for the ad that ads that played in the last one. The first one I was like,
they're the completely legitimate ads.
Super real ads, absolutely. Bogdan, I mean, they're not sponsoring this episode, but it helped us upload to YouTube. That was fantastic. Exactly. It was so good.
That's a huge out of pocket settlement to get onto YouTube, as everybody knows.
Oh, it's the barriers to entry. Yeah.
That free website? We're on it, baby.
Oh yeah, we nailed getting on there. So some other totally similar but nondescript project. Whereas like the first thing I knocked out, I was like, "This is amazing. Everyone needs to this is what needs to go on the final." And then I was like, "Okay, I want to make some more." Then I made like 5 or 6 or 7 more that I was like, I like this, I like this, I like this about this. And it's only in that re-edit process that I'm like, oh, right, this is trash for all of these reasons, but I had no frame of reference because it was only a step forward at that time. But you step into this new territory, in this new neighborhood, and then you're like, oh, right, there's so much more possibility here. But your first step into it, you're like, look at this, I'm in a new space and I'm rocking it.
I think it's important to you sort of read it out loud and then you go, you kind of hear yourself saying it and you say, I don't even want to hear myself say this. No one else wants to hear me say this. It's like I was saying just before, like I had the 2 poems I just did. That came out of, I already wrote one, and then due to global events, we couldn't have events anymore, and so I couldn't perform it. And so then I was reading it again, and then I read the first little bit, and I was like, and then something new popped into my head, and I wrote after that, and I'm like, well, hang on, this is going in a different trajectory than the rest of the other stuff. So first time ever, I literally split one poem into 2. And And I was like, oh, so I'm like going back through all my other stuff to see if I can do the same. Just be like, make it easier for myself.
I just doubled my anthology.
Well, then, and then if like for a track and that kind of stuff, I have a backlog of random stuff I can use for Vibe Union stuff as well. So benefits everyone.
A win-win-win, an omni-win, if you will.
I would if you would let me. MQ, I'd like to pose the same question to you. I love that your name just rhymes with little things like that. Like, what would you do? How are you? All these things. It just creates that nice rhythm that is also ruined by me addressing it during this question. But nonetheless, enough of my bullshit. What are you working on? What's in the works? What are you building from the ground up? I don't know. I'm done talking.
For sure. I like it. It's a good, robust, meaty question, and there's a lot to unpack in that. The main focus for me right now is the Fringe Festival show, and that's it's so exciting in development in Melbourne, but it'll be live streamed and cool. So watch out. Ticket details come out October 22. Cheeky little plug.
Which will definitely be plugged on Vibe Union's all platforms, be it Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, what have you.
So that's been cool, and that's one of those things where like I finished watching Lil Dicky's show Dave, and at the back of that I was like, why am I procrastinating? I should be like gunning for my dreams regardless of what anyone else thinks. And having finished the episode at 2 a.m. I then stayed up for like half the night just writing the script for Act 1, and I was like, sick, this is great, I'm gonna like roll into Act 2 tomorrow. Now it's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and it's like still conceptualizing Act 2, still thinking about like what are the first words of this act. And it's just that silly little trap to fall into of like, I just nailed it on Act 1. That was so good. And now how do I even top that? It's like intimidating myself, even though none of it is polished or great yet. And so that just sort of overcoming that mental challenge, and then part distraction and part seeking new inspiration is just plugging onto different projects. So putting in a verse in another language for this week's Vibration. That was a lot of fun. So watch out for that. We can come to chat to that in a sec if you like. And the other one was what else have I been working on? Was a Detour. I just released my song. I just released my single Detour in the last week or so.
You just release a song. Just release a single.
Just like everyone does,
Just like everyone does.
That's fine.
Cheeky song.
So I've been working on that and putting that out there, and it's been cool because learning from the experience of like Vibe Union and releasing Vibrations every week and how to do YouTube stuff. I was like, cool, I've got this like sort of basic understanding, and I like kind of half-assed it because I was just like, I just need this done and out. Like I wish I could pay someone to do this stuff, and like they know tags and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, YouTube just liked the video, so it would start like suggesting it to people, which I've never seen happen with anything we've done at Vibe Union. But it was just like, there's this random group of people called something in the iGenes, and they've got a song called Pirate, and it's a kids channel, so it's for young people. And it's like, oh, I'm a pirate is me, something like that. And it's just like home video type recording. A family's just gone and recorded this on like a fake pirate ship. It was definitely fake. I don't know why.
I was going to say, this makes it like...
There's a redundant air quotes.
They're on
the people are only tuning into the listening experience.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sorry.
MQ just did air quotes where they weren't necessary. So for whatever reason, that video, people would get my music video suggested to them, and they would be like, yeah, I'm gonna go watch this. And then they would watch it for like a pretty decent period of time. Like, so tracking stats and doing that kind of thing is just like, sweet. I've been learning how to analyze this and understand what to do with it and how that's going. So that was cool. And then I got greedy. I was like, oh, it's like the little tags I've put in the video. So maybe let me put in some more relevant tags. The moment I did that, like I was tracking real-time views. The moment I did that, it went to 0. It just stopped getting recommended to anyone because I added more tags in. So I was just like, ugh, this is silly. So learning that process and fine-tuning, that's just sort of happening in the background. But I've, had a couple of really good conversations with people I trust this week about prioritizing. And someone literally was like, dude, you're doing too much. Like this kind of stuff, stop stop diving headfirst into it. Either find someone else to do it or just accept that you can't do it right now because you've got this other shit to work on. So that's been a big part of that process. So has been over the last year or so, especially.
I think with in terms of like social media marketing like that, like we compare ourselves to the people we watch every single day, and the people we watch every single day live this lifestyle of algorithms, YouTube algorithms, Instagram algorithms, and they have a team of people. If I was to just take a demonstration, take an example rather, is Rhett and Link of Good Mythical Morning is like my go-to everyday watching experience, right? And I watched them maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they had a team of maybe like 10 people. And now it looks, from the way their show operates and the way the background stuff operates, multiple channels behind them, it seems like it's 20 or 50. Yeah, it's growing exponentially. And something I can't remember if they talked about it, but something that I noticed, at least, I've heard other people talk about this, is like they will put up the video, and if I see their video pop up and it says uploaded 53 minutes ago, I'm like, oh wow, this is a fresh video. On YouTube, that's like instantly, right? Like you're one of the first few to jump on that. But then I see that same video 2 days later, and it's got a different thumbnail and it's titled differently. But then I think about it for a second, I'm like, hang on, but that's the same video. That's the same thing. And they have talked about it that like they have separate, they've always got multiple backups of thumbnails, of titles ready to go. So if they see that their video isn't hitting the mark where they wanted it to hit, they'll change in the thumbnails, change in the titles, anything to try and either grab the algorithm or just trick human psychology to be like, you're scrolling through YouTube and something about that particular thumbnail didn't grab you, but this one might. And both times, like, that's fascinating on one hand, but at the same time, like, who has the time that is a sole creator? Because Rhett and Link make the content in terms of they're the presenters, but but then to do all that stuff in the behind the scenes, they need a team of people. So I know it's a weird ask for especially a musical artist who releases maybe once every couple of months if they're doing singles, maybe once a year if they're doing an album, to hit the algorithm exactly right for that particular time, because the algorithm changes all the time. So you never know where you're going to be at. Unless you're uploading every single day, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's working. I don't know. I say this is in a sense of like advice, but also just spare musical artists, because what the fuck are we supposed to do? I don't understand. It's nuts.
I'm so with you on that. I think this is a good opportunity as a big call out. If you're watching this and you're like, I could do that shit in my sleep. All right, here's the gauntlet. Here's the challenge. Like, come on board, help us out. Like, we're all just trying to get big, you know. We're all just trying to sort it out. And I'm in a position where, one, I haven't been spending a lot of money, but there has been job seeker coming in this time. I'm like ready to spend where it's worthwhile to promote my music and to get out to more people. And I feel like we're getting more and more organically into the topic of today as well. But the purpose is to kind of get music out there and get it heard by people who really connect to the ideas. And it's all just stabs in the dark. It's all like top 12 YouTube hacks to get your video seen by 37,000 people. Yeah. And then you do them all. And then you're like, oh, why have I got 3 views? Yeah. And then you go read another thing. It's like, if you're doing those 12 hacks, you're wasting your time and ruining your account. Step 1, delete your account. You're a fucking idiot. It's like, oh,
Step 1, kill yourself. Oh, no. Thank you, YouTube video.
Step 1, change your persona and who you are as a person, your ideology, the way you sound, your background, your ancestry, everything. Change it and then get back to us.
Do you still feel like your soul has any relevant impact on your life? You need to cut that shit out. You need to become a mindless robot.
I feel like I would do better. Yeah. No, I would do better as a makeup artist doing like tutorials, I feel like, compared to my music, just based on like the algorithms right now.
Oh, man.
You've got a good personality for that, like constant in your face kind of stuff, which I also love in your music.
I've also got the lashes. Oh, thanks, man.
That's true. You're the influencer personality that we desperately need. but it's still like you've got that aspect, and then it's still you need there's this weird we say know-how of how to run the algorithms, but no one really knows. That's absurd. No. And on that note of algorithms, we're going to try and game ours and make some bucks. So here's a little ad for you to support the show. Enjoy that or don't enjoy that. Listen to it so we can make money, and then come back right back to us. Peace.
Do you ever catch the whiff of something that's not so pleasant? Are you looking for new scents in your life? Are you low on dollars and only have cents to pay for some scented candles? Well, you've come to the right woman. My name's Sharul, and this is my scented candle line. Dandelion, lion, dove, turquoise, raspberry, licorice, plums, leaves. All of these scents have been handpicked by the best to deliver you a scented candle that will put some sense back into your life. Bye for now. Mwah. Sharu, scented candles just for you. Sharu.
Thank you for today's sponsor for making this all possible. Otherwise, it would never have even begun. Vibe Union would be dead in the dust if it wasn't for insert sponsor name here. Guys, what is it? What is it to truly be authentic when it comes to making art? Now, this has been something that has been on my mind for a long time, because as I'm sure a lot of especially guys growing up in Australia, I don't know why I did a different accent than an Australian accent.
A non-Australian accent.
Australia.
But growing up in the land of Australia, as a guy, I found, especially in my late 20s, that I learned to shut down a lot of emotions. But at the same time, so this is a bit of a discussion of two things, I guess, which I'm riffing on, so I'm making it up as I go along. So it's kind of a discussion on toxic male masculinity, but more importantly, authenticity in art. I found myself when I was early 20s, which I know I look like I'm mid-teens, but I did go through my mid-20s and trust early 20s. I'm mid-20s now. Shut the fuck up. Everybody calm down, all right? Get out of the comment section. We're here for the now. We're here for the... Okay. In my early 20s, I found I learned to shut down a lot of emotions. But at the same time, I was desperately trying to be an artist. I was desperately trying to put everything I had into my art. And I actually found myself questioning, for one, quite considerably my own sanity, because I was wondering like, oh, maybe I'm a psychopath. Maybe I don't feel anything. That's an interesting prospect. That's a whole other story. But more importantly, I was like, but if I don't have feelings, if I don't really feel anything, what are people going to relate to? That's my question, basically. So to relate it to this year, I'm going to relate it to myself first, primarily, and then you guys can jump off there. So for this year, at the start of the year, I went through a breakup. And that breakup was great, except for the breakup part. Everything else, the breakup sucked, obviously, because it's a breakup. However, it was great fuel for an EP because you're full of emotion, you're bawling your eyes out, you're sitting in front of your computer or your pad of paper, and you're like, "Oh, baby, I got a song. I got a song about heartbreak." Everyone loves a heartbreak song, and that was great. But then COVID hit, and I was locked in a room for 6 to 7 months, however long it's been. I've completely lost track of time. Yeah. And for the start, you're like, oh, I'm so angry about being locked inside and rattling on the cage. I'm banging on the bars. I'm trying to get out. But after this much time, man, you there's just part of you that's numb to it all, right? You don't feel anything anymore. You watch the news, and like, sorry.
What's next?
Lockdown's still happening. All right, cool. Can we open with that next time? Lockdown's still happening. I don't give a shit about all the rest. All right, sweet. I don't care whose fault it is anymore. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I found myself like I put at the start some ISO topics. I talked about COVID some lockdown stuff in my music, and I actually ended up making an album out of it. All right, so like I guess I can't really complain about being totally out of inspiration, but I definitely found towards the back end of lockdowns that I was running dry in terms of just my human experience was the same It was Groundhog Day. I'm going through the same thing every single day, and to put that into my music, it felt like it was not authentic to actually try and pretend like I'm writing heartbreak music, writing breakout music, writing rebellious music, because like, sure, I want to rebel against some stuff, but realistically, I'm in a box. I'm in like a 3x3 meter box. So basically, I think starting with the emotional side, do you guys find yourself faking it at times, or do you find yourself tapping in purely on an emotional side when it comes to art? What's your where is your go-to? Is it purely emotion, or do you guys find that you sometimes are happy to go with a by the numbers, almost like, I've run out of words. That's my question. MQ, how do you relate to this?
I relate really deeply. I guess one thing I've come to recognize over the last 2 years in my life is I spent or was conditioned into or somehow fell into a trap of denying, ignoring, and suppressing emotion, right? As a young angsty teen, as a late teen, as in my 20s, and everything was, it needed to be ironic for it to be expressive, right? I think we all kind of went through that phase of like irony. Mm-hmm. I don't love this thing. I like love it. You know what I mean? Like I love it so much. It's like a thing. Like I love this thing like it's a thing. It was ironic that I ate unhealthy. So I would like put that as my Facebook statuses and try to like get a laugh out of that. It was ironic that I was unemployed. Like everything was through this lens of, I don't actually feel this, but here's this character I'm kind of placing for you for your consumption. And that was, well before. And then looking at even my entry into music, like I'm not going to sit here and try to tell people that I started making music because I needed to change the world with music. It was almost the other way around. I kind of got invited to participate in a friend's music project because I was like hanging out at hip hop karaoke and I would rap good someone else's lyrics. And these guys were like, hey, do you want to come and like write your own lyrics or help us just record some covers? We think you got a good voice. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me see what I can write. And I would just write these like generic hip hop lyrics. If you listen to my first single, Kingdom, it's literally just like, I'm so good. Here's some references that are punchlines. I just like absorbed everything I thought I knew about hip hop and rap and regurgitated that back out. And soon after kind of creating and even like putting it together, I was like, this is more for posterity that this should exist. Mm-hmm. Like I still go back and listen to it and kind of, I need to cringe at it because it's like, none of this relates to who I am or what I'm doing. Like I name dropped 2 locations in that song that I've never been to. And I've traveled to lots of locations in the world. Like I'm really proud of the amount of travel I've done and the experiences I've had by opening my eyes. And this is a little bit, I'm trying to like talk about that, but I found this roundabout way that like runs through, light references to drug use to get there. And it's like, that's not even who I am. That's not what I'm about. I'm putting that in this music because I feel like that's what's required of the form of the genre. So it's only recently that I've come to appreciate and accept that like, oh, right. Like every time I actually talk about something real in my music or even in conversations like this, that's when people are listening. That's when people are affected. That's when our relationships deepen and strengthen. And then as I, started doing things and people were like, hey, like you're good at this. Like external validation is really important. I'm hearing from people that I'm doing well at this thing. And I was like, okay, let me, try writing a song in this vein about a time that I've been really down and out. And I've got this demo called Level Up. And I played it to a few people and they're like, I feel this. Like I really resonate with this. Thank you. Like I'm connecting with that. And that's when it started to get real for me. I was like, oh, right. Words that I'm putting to music are affecting people in some kind of way well beyond what I would otherwise hope to do. And ultimately, like, my sort of credo, my motto for what I want to do in my own life is to inspire hope in every heart. I feel like it's really important, especially in the world we're in today, that people be hopeful, that people be optimistic. And that's something that I'm stoked that I'm able to manage within myself. I'm able to manifest it in as much of my day-to-day living as I can. And I want to engender that in other people. And music then becomes this really powerful vessel to do that. And it's like, okay, I've been shown very clearly that when it's authentic and pure about my expression and relying on experiences that I've really felt this thing, and that's what I'm trying to inject into the music, it connects with people and achieves that goal of inspiring hope in that sense. And every time it's inauthentic, people just kind of scroll past and they move on. So for me, that is very much about the emotional aspect, even though I'm still learning how to dig that up, how to engage with that emotional aspect, live in that moment, live in that feeling, and then be able to put pen to page about it. And in the meantime, it's doing my best to avoid saying or doing or being things that I know I'm not, and don't even want to be. Sort of long-winded roundabout way, but I'm still learning how to dig up the emotions to put on the page.
So it's an interesting thing of like, you're at the start, we're all scared of being inauthentic. I think like we all look up to our favorite artists, and okay, here's two interesting examples of perhaps Kanye West and Kendrick Lamar, of two kind of polar opposites in terms of the way they present their art, because obviously Kendrick is very methodical. There's so much depth to every little thing that he does, while Kanye is raw, in the moment, quick. And let's ignore obviously all the politics of kind of where Kanye is at, and even where Kendrick's at right now. Like it's not important, but the point is like the way they express themselves artistically. They're both, I don't think anyone could argue that they are inauthentic in the way that they are approaching their art, right? And I think especially at the start, like if you spend any time on subreddits or talking to younger artists who are up and coming, what have you, they will all, the first thing that comes to their mind is like, okay, I just started. How do I find my voice? How do I find my sound and my way of speaking, my way of communicating? And I think it's a fear that is in all of us, that is like especially when you start that, oh God, am I going to sound like everybody else? Am I going to be in the sea of all the others? But when in fact it seems more that you just have to start doing. You just have to get into it and just do it all the time, and your voice will come. And to find that authenticity is not day one. Kendrick didn't find it. Kanye didn't. Kanye's maybe Kanye. Of all people, maybe he was authentic from day one. But Kendrick has even talked about some of his previous work before Section 80, talking about how he made songs that were kind of about club life, about drug life, about all that kind of stuff that he actually didn't. He saw, because he was in that world, but he didn't actually feel really connected to it. And so he listed one of his worst songs in his words was this one that was kind of like a turn up, go to the club track. And he mentioned it in an interview, saying like it wasn't him. And you listen to it and it's fine. It's another track. It's just another normal club banger, nothing special. But for him, it was the worst one because it was the most fake. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing that you in a quest to be inauthentic, you actually need to give up your fear to do that. If you almost can't work towards it, rather just do it every day. It's to bring it back to bring it to a really new agey philosophical way of looking at the world, is Eckhart Tolle talks about living in the now, as most new philosophers do. And in fact, just philosophy in general always almost comes back to live in the now and you'll be fine. That's almost everything. That's what Jesus was on about. That's what Buddha's on about. Live in the goddamn now and you'll be all right. But one thing that really resonated with me with him was saying that like you can't work towards living in the now because the now is right now. You have to be present right now. Otherwise, it's done. You can't. It's not a step-by-step process. It's just a state of being. And I kind of feel like authenticity is that. It is that sense of now that for a lot of us, if not everyone who tries to be an artist, has to figure out after a while that they're trying to scale these steps that don't exist. It's right here, right now, baby. That's my.
Well, I had a question, MK. You were saying like, you said that you don't quite know how to put those emotions into your work. I think from like watching the videos and like your Detour, check it out on YouTube.
Link
and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. I think talking about experiences and all that kind of stuff to me is still imparting like an emotional thing, despite it not going, I am angry, I'm mad, I'm sad. It's sort of going, this is what I've done, this is what happened, this is, and that kind of thing. So I think it's still, and it's that you still get the authenticity from it, because it's like, I think one thing I always think about authenticity is, like, I look at the change of like the Black Eyed Peas from original starting to the
hell yeah
to what they are, like to what they're making now, and obviously I'm assuming they're happy with it. But it's like if you say, I love the Black Eyed Peas, you're like, if you listen to them, 1994 or whatever, completely different what they're doing now. And if they just want to make club beats and whatever, it's good on them.
I will just quickly say there was a recent shift. Their last album.
I haven't paid attention to it much.
So. The last album goes back. The last album goes back. Okay. They bring on Nas. I think they
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like old school hip hop. They ditched Fergie, and it's back to the way it was. Which
Yep.
I'm not saying which is better, because
Sure.
Yeah.
They made some bangers, regardless of artistically. Their heyday era was like banger city. So I'm not going to tell them which one's better.
I said like they've hit both. They've hit from the original stuff to what they've done, in the early and late 2000s and whatnot. Yep. I still remember seeing Kanye featuring on a Dilate People's song. Early 2000 or something like that. Who Dilate People I like, because they just sing about where they're from and that kind of stuff. Even going to like Hilltop Hoods and their change from Nosebleed Section to some of the stuff they've done with Brother Ali and all that kind of stuff. Is it that shift in and then Charlie Tuna and that kind of stuff?
Hold on, did you say Hilltop Hoods and Brother Ali?
Yeah. It's a good song. Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
I'm going to look that up. Yeah, I love Brother.
But they're going from just talking about just rapping and stuff, and then they've still got their other like more fun comedic songs and stuff. But then like a couple of them have they've got some smaller artists in to feature on their smaller Australian artists in to feature on their stuff, and it's just a shift change. And I think obviously you have big numbers already, so it's easier. But
I really like what you've said in that as well, and where you started, especially Jason, in terms of naming the emotion or being very specific about it might not necessarily be the most authentic or enlightened version of that expression. And actually in recounting an experience and making that vivid, that in and of itself could just result in the authenticity that it takes to connect to an audience. I really dig that. And I think, right, like what you said about it's that sort of chaining of experience. Like it's actually a practice to get into the rhythm of doing it enough that you then go, oh, right, this is my voice. Like I'll put this out there to anyone who has started, is going to, has been freestyle rapping for a long time. I promise you there are phrases that you just always go back to. They just rhyme better. They just go better. You feel like why is no one else always rhyming these words together, right? It seems so obvious. And it's actually purely because of, those words are associated in my head beyond just rhyming, because otherwise every time I said the word legacy, I wouldn't think of the word pedigree. But for whatever reason I do, because it's about heritage and lineage and legacy and all those things kind of sit in the same area in my brain. So in terms of that repetition, it's only you do it enough times and you're like, okay, cool. This is a real feature of my character. I'll write 100 raps and 90 of them will have some kind of political reference. Like that's just where my mind goes. It's kind of the experiences I've had. So I really buy both of those ideas in that the repetition kind of breeds authenticity. It results in it's almost, even though you're creating more, you're actually chipping away at this amorphous blob of the artist that you could be to turn into the artist that you are. And I think I wanted to kind of divert a little bit off of that, sort of rounding off those kind of 2 points. But as musicians, we have this luxury of a beat, a sonic landscape, a fair bit of production that happens as well that can help change and accentuate character. And that's, vocal effects. Like you listen to me on Detour and you listen to me on Rap Cannibal, and they're two very different characters, but they've come from the same voice box. They've come from the same mind of lyricism. And I would say they're relatively, they still mean something to me that's very much sort of in line with who I am and in a certain way I fucking love to eat. But in terms of that ability to play a character and have it still come off as authentic, I guess I wanted to get your take on that, Jason, in terms of as a poet, standing on a stage, a cappella, unaccompanied, and delivering something that in theory should be very real and vulnerable and raw. How much processing goes into that method? By the time you're on stage, how authentic do you feel delivering that poem on sort of an average basis? And can you give us some extreme examples of inauthentic and authentic?
I mean, I think I can only speak for myself. I've been at some things and, some competitions and whatnot, and I've seen people go up and talk about some pretty heavy stuff, but they've walked off stage with a smile and high five someone going, yeah, I know what I did. And I've elicited a response. You can see that I've elicited a response and I know that's going to get good numbers. But then afterwards you see them like, oh yeah, it was, but for me personally is, if I'm up on stage and doing it all, like I know I've done well when I don't remember what I did. Like I sort of black out, get into a zone. So if I do, so my authenticity comes from like, I will do it and I will get louder, or I let what my body and brain thinks it needs to do on stage. And I'm not thinking about, it helps if I rehearsed it and remembered it. Sometimes just haven't had the time. So I got, you kind of referencing on paper and whatnot. But if you get into that, it's basically like, the old things like get into the zone kind of thing is, I know after, like, once I finish the poem is what I feel afterwards is like, what happened, that kind of thing. It's sort of like, whereas I've done a couple where I was like, oh, I kind of like this. It hasn't rhymed. I'm trying to do something different, see how it goes. And I remember it, like I'm in the moment and I'm sort of aware of what's going on, and it's just not the same kind of feeling. So it's sort of you've got a bit of spoken word that you've rehearsed, and it's sort of like, but to me, I know it's authentic when I'm not realizing what's going to happen when I say it, which is then the crowd sort of seems to realize as well. I remember once I was like sitting there and I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to go up. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just going to go up and do it all on my own. And wow. I'm like, I got nothing rehearsed, and I went up. I got out of the top. I mean, there's rounds. So I got to the last round. I'm like, this is something different. For me, I'm like, I've got something here, but whatever. If I bomb, I bomb. If I don't, I don't. The point is that I went up and I did something off the top of my head. And that's all that matters. And I went up and didn't win. That's fine. But, I think you can, crowds like that, and it's random judges on the night if you're doing that kind of stuff, and they can be brutal. Like they know, like I've heard some amazing poems, but they've stuttered or they've tripped over words, and they go, nah, even though that there was some really good stuff. But so you got to be, I like when I'm authentic, and, I can just, sometimes, I'm like, well, I put all this effort into a poem I wasn't completely happy with because it was sort of an experiment to kind of like doing something new for an algorithm, I would do something new for a crowd or stuff. And I'm like, that should probably be reserved for an open mic, but it just doesn't feel the same. But that's just how I feel about it. Yeah.
Sure. You, since the start, have always struck me as a very authentic and like quite open book person. I've said this to you before. You don't seem to have an agenda. You seem to be quite easy to read and quite open about where you're at, both in the moment and sort of in general, whether you're recognizing a lack in or your own sort of perceived lack of incompetence in something, even though you fucking crush it every time you've been on the track with us.
But I think that's a personal thing. Yeah,
sure, for sure, and that's sort of esteem and confidence. I guess. I guess it's a character flaw. I just crush it every time. I can't even help it.
I crush too much. Yeah.
What I wanted to say was, have you found yourself in a position where compromising on your integrity or the honesty of your expression would result in a better outcome for you, and how have you responded to that situation?
I think every time that I've in a way compromised, it hasn't gone well for me. Like it hasn't.
Okay.
It has.
Can you think of any examples?
I think the last competition I did just before we weren't allowed to have crowds or anything anymore. Like I tried to do something. I thought it was really good. I had like some really nice metaphors and all this stuff, and it was real poignant, real emotional but it didn't rhyme and it didn't have my regular flow and that kind of stuff. I changed something different. And then someone there was like, you do those really awesome, like fast, angry, autistic poems. And I'm like, usually, but I'm doing something different tonight. And they were like, oh, okay. And I'm like, because I didn't want to kind of pigeonhole myself.
Sure.
And I'm like, and then I went up and, as I said to you, I was aware of everything I was saying and I wasn't in that same moment. So for me, after I finished, I felt, because for me, I'm my worst critic. I get, I'm like a perfectionist. Even though if it's not perfect, I need it to be, rewriting and all that kind of stuff. So if it's not authentic to me, it's a waste of time. It's unaccomplished. It's just, I spent a month trying to do this poem. I had it all written out a ton of times and I had this stuff going, hit flat. And I just was like, not that I needed the validation. It was just like, I knew that it wasn't what I should have done after I'd done it. And I'm like, I should have just done what I do when I like doing. And because that's what I was doing. And I'm like, let's change it up and just hit flat. And it hit me flat. It hit me flat the most. So I'm like, all right, let's just go back to what I like and what I'm enjoying doing. And,
and get back into those in the zone, blacked out performing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I think if you have someone walk up to you and give you criticism and say like, hey, buddy, that was terrible. That was a rubbish performance. Then you can be like, okay, cool. Well, fuck you. On your bike, get out of here. But if somebody comes up to you and says something very specifically that you also were already worried about that, then it ruins you.
Blows it, bang.
Yeah. Like every time I've delved into a depression because of my music, it's always something that I already knew, and it just got to the point of like I'm creating something and it reaches a point when I'm like, I don't want to work on this anymore, so I'm putting it out there. I'm done with it. And then somebody brings up the one thing you were hoping people wouldn't notice, and you're like, oh fuck, I really was hoping they had noticed that shit.
Yeah.
I think that so to hear that kind of criticism, that it's not them. It was like I already knew that. Yeah. I already knew that shit. That being said, though, I want to kind of give my own take on this. It's a bit different when you've got a crowd in front of you, because when you're standing in front of a crowd and you walk up there and go, guys, I know you know me for this, but I'm going to try this, and we're going to see how we go. And everyone's like, okay. I mean, we really like you for this. So if you fuck up this, we're gonna really be thinking about what you used to do. And you're like, I know. Let's try it. And then you bomb. Oh my god, nothing hurts more. But that also being said, those times of stepping out of your comfort zone and bombing, it's very different to when you've got an audience versus when you don't have an audience. But one thing that I've really enjoyed about Vibe Union is, and just working with people in general, is that I've been encountering people who I wouldn't normally work with, and not genres, but like subgenres of hip hop that I wouldn't normally work with. People pushing me more towards trap, where I'm more commonly, or I feel more comfortable in boom bap. And I find myself in trap.
Same, yeah.
Working with 808s and rattling hi-hats and stuff like that. And for a long time, even though I listen to trap all the time, I would steer away from it because that's not me. I prefer the boom bap snares of the 90s. But then I found myself going to the trap sound and I was like, it's not hitting. It's not hitting as hard. But then I went back to my old style production and I would take little bits that I really liked from learning that trap sound, little bits that it didn't gel with me at the time, but I take it back to my old stuff and my old stuff hits so much harder. And in fact, after a little while, I found myself going back to the trap stuff and thinking, all right, cool. Now I am actually I can now take my old stuff and my old way of production, my old workflows, and bring it into this new style. And again, it's different, obviously, being me in a bedroom I can lock my door, I can tell everyone to fuck off, I'm going to make trap music for a couple of hours, no one disturb me, compared to standing on a stage and reading a poem that I'm not totally sure about, or if I am sure about, it's a different style to what they expect of me. But those moments of nervous, potentially perceivable I've lost my words, lack of authenticity, could also be later down the road one of the most important learning curves for you as well, because you are completely out of your comfort zone. It's almost like an animalistic sense of seeing, what am I going to do with my fight and flight sense? What is the natural, the artistic intuition going to do without all of its safety rails? Let's see what I can do in that situation. I find that kind of stuff really, really fascinating.
I think that's a really exciting concept of authenticity. And I think it definitely gets lost or confused for they're just chasing, right? Mm-hmm. You hear someone change the sound. I've accused people, at least in my own head, of they're just cloud chasing. They're just following a trend. And that isn't necessarily true. It might be in some cases, that's fine. But there's a certain authenticity to just going, I want to try this. I authentically want to try making music like this. And this is what it sounds like. Mm. And I think the ability to communicate that is pretty integral in maintaining that relationship with the people that trust and respect you as an artist. But I think it's also, it's really integral that you understand that that's the intention. Yeah. I've definitely, I've authentically resisted the pull of sort of making trap music and music that is very what I just deem to be lazy. Mind you, I believe it's 100% authentic to the people making it. Yeah. They when that genre was sort of first born, or the people that are making it, it's glorious. I actually really dig the fact that exists for people who maybe aren't flow driven. That's not their actual interest. They've maybe come from a background of listening to quite as the genre emo or punk rock type music, and they quite like singing. But then they're okay, but I want it to kind of sound as heavy and as dark, and then whack some auto-tune on, and I just want to sing these lyrics that I've written and this poetry, and they sing it in a way that makes sense to them, and then that births its own little genre, and it's that's deeply authentic. Oh, and it happens that everyone kind of laps it up at the same time, so there's a bit of a zeitgeist. People are really feeling those feelings, and they're feeling that sonic landscape. And now enter all these people that are this is the formula, I'm going to write to it, I'm going to write this, that, put 808s here, boom, that's a track. And when it's that part of the process, I think that version of it that people really start to resent. There's a lot of criticism around it. And anyone whose first release sounds exactly like that, you're like, you're carbon copying. Like that feels deeply inauthentic. But maybe the process of encouragement and very specific feedback, Raya, I like that you mentioned that. It's in the specific feedback loop of, hey, this part of your overall semi-authentic expression, this part really sounds like you. This resonates with me about being your expression, and I think you should do more of this. So I've had people be like, you know, when you rap really fast, that strikes me of you, because naturally I'm a very talkative person. I'll use a bunch of different words, and people are like, yep, I dig that more than when you're trying to do like a Tyler, the Creator impression. And that in and of itself speaks volumes. Like, I'm trying to be someone else. I'm trying to write specific lyrics that I think someone else would write, rather than simply, these are my words put down on paper about how I feel about this thing. So I think that sense of feedback, a very specific feedback around experimenting and the authenticity of experimenting and it being authentic, that you want to explore that avenue. I think that should be given some breathing room, and actually some forgiveness should be paid towards that. I'm saying that equally to myself.
How
I respond.
I think that's an important point you brought up, MQ, is if someone changes a little bit what they usually do and bring out something more emotional and authentic, and then people try to go, oh, that worked. Let's try to emulate that. I said, I'm not saying everyone can, but, you know, they go, oh, you know, they use words like, oh, you know, like, oh, they talked about being sad. What's another word for sad? Upset. Oh, I am upset. You know, and then they go, and then they kind of go, but you're like, what are you? You're just saying random emotions. Whereas we're going back to before, it's like, this person's been authentic, changing up about more of an experience and bringing emotions into it. Whereas this person's going, oh, I have to have a sad track to it, sad background track, and talk about emotions. Oh, I'm sad. Be like, why? You know what I mean? Because
also because you name dropped.
Yeah.
Sorry, because you name dropped, I'm upset. I'm going to plug this as a part of like Vibe Union member Jason Voss takes Drake to task because he's got a song called I'm Upset, and he's literally
exactly.
just
so like
I'm upset.
But then in that original change of genre, they've sort of, you can tell that everyone goes, oh, this a rapper or singer was talking about an experience that they had. I go to Joyner Lucas is talking about, like, he's got an album called ADHD. Not all the songs I like on it. It's not, I haven't heard them all, but some of them, it kind of just seems like he's just like having a bit more fun and just going all out and that kind of thing, calling it ADHD, and sort of that, where someone else might go, oh, let's, what else is kind of like ADHD? Oh, you know, that, and then trying to move into that. But you'd be able to tell that it's not as authentic, I reckon. I'd like to think so. You know.
Well, I think to sum up all of our conversation, I think you mentioned, Jason, a little while back, simply that, like, when you get up on stage and when you black out, when you walk off stage and you don't really remember what happened, the audience responds in a way that they respond authentically. They're like, that was your best shit, man. That was fucking awesome. Even if you said the same poem, and I think we've all encountered this, like, we can deliver the same song, the same poem time again, but there'll be some times maybe you've had a couple of too many beers one time, or maybe you're just in the right zone. You had the girl you've been crushing on for a little while. She just told you that she really likes you too, and you're on this high, and you walk on stage and you deliver it in a way that's just like black the fuck out for a second, and everyone in the audience is like, holy shit, I'm sorry, did we just see a real human being get up there? I think we just saw a real human being. And I've said this for a long time, personally, for me, is like, regardless of what genre, regardless of, like, even in saying like electronic music, like let's say house music or psytrance or something like that, right, that doesn't have vocals most of the time, that is purely produced in a DAW, in a DAW, in a program, is computer-driven music, and the audience can still hear. To me, I believe this, that the audience can still hear you having a good time. If they can hear you having a good time, if they can hear that the other person on the end making the music is going like, that was that was great. My favorite videos are like when producers show rappers beats for the first time. You see like Kanye showing Jay-Z a fresh beat, and Jay-Z takes his hat off and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker." That is ridiculous. That is fire. That moment of people just being like, this is awesome, and I'm having a good time. You just, as a listener, want to hear the artist on the other end having a good time, regardless if it's sad, regardless if it's happy, regardless of whatever. I think just having the artist on the other end being enjoying themselves, or like feels like this needed to exist for them, then I'm in. I'm subscribing. I'll tap in. This is great. I think that's all it is, and that's hard. It's hard to achieve, especially when you've got. We all deal with it. It's just self-doubt. We've got that frontal lobe just screaming at us constantly, just saying, hey, you're not good. You're not a good rapper. You're not a good producer. You're not a good poet. You should stop. We've all got that. But if you can have a good time doing it, then the audience will cross their heart and be like, hell yeah, man. That was it. That's what I needed tonight. Well, what a bloody good time this has been. Hit on so many interesting topics, and I had a bloody blast. And now it's everyone's favorite segment. At least it's my favorite segment, is when we get to hear what everyone's working on as an actual demonstration. I want to see your talents. I want to see what's going on. Mash, why don't you take it away? What's going on, baby?
Yeah, man. Well, thanks. It's been a really good chat. What I'm working on right now is I've just released my new single Detour, and I actually want to show that off to you guys, flex with the bars and do a bit of a live performance, very inspired by Armluther and the way that she went about it. This is my single Detour, and it's about my connection to the divine and feeling wayward and being able to come back onto the right path and somehow providing solace for yourself and for the people around you, that it's just a detour and you can always come back.
Hell yeah. Cool.
This is Detour. I took the scenic route. You know that scenes believing. I used to be blinded by feelings of fear and doubt. Now I'm on scene and I'm reeling to shout it out. Religion or theme got the same meaning, and now I can't live without him. God isn't just a celebrity making us follow through every step of a recipe. Human divinity, breath of the maker, what makes us move A to B. Isn't it plain to see? Follow your course to follow his plan. You got your own, and every woman and every man, the journey's the same, but each path is a branch. Mine used to be random, worry about looking all handsome, holding my health to a ransom, or reckless abandon. Dropped out of uni 3 times, my grades always bleak, never got overseas. Moved overseas to escape from my problems, and now I can see the problems with me. Thought I was having fun growing up, saw how I was blowing up like it's some C4. I took the long way around, and now I've been found, cause it's only a detour. Now I'm just trying to be more. I was misguided just before, on the way down like a seesaw, long way around like a detour. Long way around like a detour. Now I'm just trying to be more, long way around like a detour. Life is so filled with distractions, no navigation, only inaction. That's why when they hate, all they get is reaction. Idle believers so quick to their anger, thinking the rage and disdain are the ways to display the love for your faith. Blinking, you'll miss all the tricks that they get us to ditch from our ways, so don't get complacent. Thought I was fighting for justice, but anger is just as destructive as hate. I took the long way around, and now I've been found, cause it's never too late. Now I'm just trying to be more. I was misguided just before, on the way down like a seesaw, long way around like a detour. Long way around like a detour. Now I'm just trying to be more, long way around like a detour. Hey, to everyone that's already gonna check this out on YouTube, on Spotify, thank you. Yep. Long way around like a detour. Saturday school as a kid, I didn't know why, it didn't make sense. Try as I might, I could never fit in. I struggled with friends, did not comprehend the fact that we're learning about heaven and hell while everyone else is living in sin. Struggles within made it harder to want to be good for a goddamn God I don't get. In a sense, this is innocence lost, my innocence of what's right and what's wrong. Oh, the light, how it shone, and I thought it was gone. Couldn't stand it for long, so I'm writing this song and I'm fighting my thoughts. Temptation is strong, but I got my resolve. Take every chance to say once and for all, no voicemail for heaven, I'll answer the call. Now I'm just trying to be more, long way around like a detour. Life takes us on so many different paths, it's crazy. Now I'm just trying to be more, long way around like a detour.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I loved hearing about your religious journeys and getting to hear that through your music. I think is a really such a powerful way to experience that from someone just watching and listening and yeah, I don't know. I found it fascinating and very enlightening for me as well, for someone who's been so so painfully atheist because of my dad, and then opening up to it a lot more as I grew older and more accepting and more I don't know. So yeah, I really appreciate getting to hear that in that kind of format. It's just really, really interesting, fascinating to me.
Cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for hearing me. And yeah, absolutely. It's a wayward journey. And, you know, we've just spoken about authenticity and injecting yourself into your music. And this is very much that song that was about exploring those experiences. So Jason, actually what you had to say about, it doesn't need to be about drawing the emotion, but actually just drawing about the exact experiences themselves. So, recognizing when I started to pen that about, Saturday school as a kid, it never really hit me that was actually quite an unpleasant experience. And it felt quite sort of obligatory. And it wasn't something that was meant to be, this connection, this higher power, this positivity. It was like, you have to do this thing, otherwise you're bad. And it's like, something I say in another song of mine is, instead of running from hell, why aren't we like building the path to heaven? Like, I feel like there's a lot of like a version of religion that is purely about avoiding the bad, but there's not enough celebration and championing of the things that are so good and beautiful about this world that we live in. So, so getting to put that in this music is amazing, and I appreciate you guys hearing me on it.
Well, thanks for sharing it, man. So good.
My pleasure.
And obviously, links are in the description. So
Absolutely.
you can find it to Spotify. Go save it and go hit repeat as often as you bloody well can. And get those streams up.
Get them streams up.
All right, Jason, what have you got to share with us?
It's really funny though, because I'm gonna do a poem, but there's no music, so sorry to disappoint everyone.
No disappointment here.
It was really interesting because when we were talking about what we wanted to originally talk about in this podcast, I already had this poem basically done before I had this topic to talk about. I mean, I've changed a little bit here and there, but it's and so I was like, well, and then what we talked about previously, all that, it just sort of organically fit in even more, more specifically than just authenticity. And then his words, like it was, it's kind of a bit eerily spooky that it worked out that way. But,
on the same wavelength.
Okay, so, yeah, no, it's, I mean, I'm not complaining. So, all right. Let's see how we go here.
Cool.
All right. As these words were originally penned, things have severely changed. Copious rewrites and numerous internal arguments exchanged. There was too much dialogue from others I was ingesting, stopping my own ideologies manifesting, finally realizing that what is left of that sanity is worth protecting. I forgot who I did this for, forgot who benefited from every rhyme and every metaphor. I tried to keep things simplified, to provide rhymes to keep others satisfied, but had to decide what deserved to be prioritized. I had to start again and press the reset button, was struggling to survive, struggling to function, trying to prove that I could be neurotypical, a task impossible, and on reflection hypocritical. Oversight hindered me from embracing my neurotic, anger-fueled poetic overloads. the wrong determination eating away at me, no matter how my words flowed. Wrapped up within this weird mental state, believing others deserve to dictate what I was allowed to perform and what I should create. I was leaving breadcrumbs, but still losing my way, guided by what I thought people wanted me to say. And everything lacked substance. It lacked any proper conviction. And despite it all being true, rolled off the tongue like fiction. Because poets call me a rapper and rappers call me a poet, mentally stuck in the middle with Malcolm, and I took too long to show it, becoming my very own gravedigger. The more I forced myself, that hole exponentially got bigger. I knew things had to change before I pulled the wrong trigger. See, rhyming has become my catharsis despite my own thoughts becoming heartless. It is the one thing I turn to, a light amongst the darkness. And it's more to me than merely conveying a message, a brain that's designed not to emote. This is how it can be expressive. So I've accepted the fact that I'm a maniac with a rhyming backpack that I ransack for maximum impact to keep intact a mind that's cracked, hoping to distract from the devil's contract. But it's still this pilgrim on a long road to progress to sort out this godforsaken internal mess, walking a fine line along this double-edged sword. For it is inside this chaos where creativity is stored. Cheers.
Oh, man. I have got the chills.
So I thought, it suited well. Mm.
That's
100%.
fantastic, man. Rappers call me a poet and poets call me a rapper. Or the other way around, you had it. And
I've had that line for a long time.
Yeah, leaving my trail of breadcrumbs, but still not finding my way or still losing my way.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. And yeah, exactly. The synchronicity of having penned that recently, having just refined it. And it sounds like you've refined it a lot over time. Yeah. But then we just settled on this topic.
And I was like, perfect time to, So I'm glad you liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Just hashtag relatable for me personally.
Absolutely.
That's all I ever wanted to be.
Ironically, and that's not the funny thing though, when you write something that is so personal, when you try and forget about what other people are going to think about it, you write purely for yourself, you'll often find people that's when they put in the hashtag label, they're like, oh my God, that's just like how I feel. It's like, oh yeah, if I put in some, if I just be genuine, humans connect with that, with genuine other human beings.
They connect with authenticity. If you,
I would.
Full circle.
Yeah, fantastic work, man. And where you're posting most of your stuff on Instagram lately?
I come out with videos when I post little snippets of my writing.
Stuff they've been cool. I actually like the like black background, the green like console text. It's very like gave me a poem.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing what I do, but I'm not going to tell anyone how I do it.
It's amazing, man.
I tried doing all the clip art stuff, and I tried using Photoshop and all that's witchcraft. I don't know how. Simplified, done.
Yep.
That's what I'd like.
Amazing.
Keep it simple, keep it authentic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And if I may be so bold, I think that is a beautiful place, even if I do say so myself, to end this episode of Authenticity. This is it, man. This is a Vibe Union podcast. This is what we're all about, is talking about the nitty-gritty bullshit, the inner workings of our heads that is self-deprecating and terrifying and loud. Oh, so loud. I can only speak for myself, but it's super noisy up there. And it's great to put it into audio format so people can relate to it in some way, hopefully. MQ, I hope you've had a great time. I'm sure you have.
I've had a fantastic time, man.
That's great to hear.
Been a great chat.
Jason, thanks so much for coming on.
It's good fun.
You better believe it's not your last time. You better believe this is only the first time. You better believe this is going to be a continual, beautiful friendship as it already is, because you're part of Vibe Union, and that's what we're all about. Is that interconnectedness, baby? I've been Rhath, aka Ray, aka Rhath. I sound like I was going to go on further than that, but I'm not going to give you my full name and address and phone number.
People have been paying close attention as every time it pops up on the screen on Zoom.
I hope you've all enjoyed our little discussion. I hope you feel authentic. I hope you feel like you're having a good time doing what you're doing. And catch us next time on the Vibe Union podcast. All the links for all of us are in the description. Check out our music, dropping every Friday. This podcast is dropping every Monday. We've got mixes to move your booties. That's coming out every Wednesday. We're all over it. If you shout content, we say how high. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Content.
Peace. How high. Peace out, everybody.
Cheers.